The Japanese section has been planning for years now to have an ICM here, and it's finally happening. It's sort of dreamlike in some ways, but very, very busy. We have about 120 volunteers who will be working for us, and it's just wonderful to have everyone coming to Japan instead of us always going somewhere else. There are only a very few paid staff. Almost all the work is being done by volunteers. And they're taking time off from their regular jobs, taking time off away from family, from children, husbands, wives. And they organized the meeting as well as a special set of events to commemorate this meeting. Events open to the general public, not just Amnesty members.
We will seek to change social relationships, transform social structures in such a way that a more just and equal world emerges in which each and every human being exercises her rights and executes her responsibilities in consonance with her inherent human dignity. That world beckons to us. It is a world that we will not live to see, but it is a world that we must work to achieve. For it is a duty that we who live in the present owe to those who will inherit the future. I pray that you will lead the way. For Amnesty International is the most important, the most influential human rights movement to have emerged in history. You have, for that reason, a special responsibility to posterity. This, I humbly submit, is the challenge that confronts Amnesty.
Basically, an enabling resolution is a resolution submitted by the IEC in order to put formally on the agenda of the Council a matter which has been prepared by another body or meeting, and of which the IEC considers it to be important that it be placed on the agenda of the ICM, or alternatively because it is a body which has been established by the ICM itself, like the Mandate Review Committee, and it needs that vehicle, technically, to get the results of the work of such a committee onto the agenda. That is the enabling resolution. There are tons of emergency resolutions, and in order to stem the flood at least a little bit, we've looked quite critically at all of them.
それではここで第20回国際評議員会議を開催するにあたって主催支部日本支部としてオープニングを始めたいと思います。
I bring to you all warm greetings from AI members in Mauritius. You probably know that Mauritius is a tiny island in the Indian Ocean, off the east coast of Madagascar, near the African continent. It is a microcosm of the world, with its multiracial population coming from Africa, Asia, and Europe. AI membership in Mauritius, like the population, is multiracial too, and operates in a multicultural and multilingual environment. In reaching out to the various communities living in the country, AI Mauritius takes into account these differences, just as the international movement itself. Mindful of the need for decentralization, in line with the spirit of the movement, we have, with the advent of section status, set up necessary structures in the smaller island of Rodrigues, 500 kilometers away from the mainland.
13 years ago, a Filipino human rights advocate who had been detained without charges for over 2 years in solitary confinement, stood before the assembled council of Amnesty International in Cambridge, England. Martial rule had been imposed in the Philippines 6 years before. The late Jose Pepe Diokno then declared before the 1978, the 11th ICM, night fell on our land and we have yet to glimpse the dawn. But now and then a spark lights up in the darkness. The lamp of freedom flickers still, despite every effort to quench it. You of Amnesty International have helped us keep it alive. For that, we Filipinos owe you a debt we can never repay. Today I stand before you to partially repay that debt.
يسعدني أن أقدم نفسي. أنا أسمى دعيبس، عضو مجموعة عمان واحد، وهي المجموعة المعترف بها.
I would just like to say that it's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here at this ICM on behalf of Amnesty members from Slovenia, Croatia, and Yugoslavia. And I was asked to convey special greetings from our members in Croatia, whose work has been seriously disturbed now due to the state of war in their territory, while the situation in my own country of Slovenia still remains uncertain.
You realize that I come from a country which for years have been supplying prisoners of consciousness. The first group in Moscow was set up about between 1973 and 74. But under the existing circumstances, it could do very little to protect other prisoners in other countries. It mostly supplied its own members as prisoners of consciousness for you people to take care of. Things have changed greatly in our country especially.
We've used our 30th anniversary not to congratulate ourselves, but to remind the growing number of people we are able to reach of the terrible scale on which torture, killings, and political imprisonment are still perpetrated in the world. But we should reflect on our success too, because with it goes an enormous responsibility to maintain and enhance our effectiveness. In Kuwait in June and in Grenada in August, we were foremost among those who lobbied successfully when executions seemed imminent. Not only in the Philippines, as has been mentioned, but also in Brazil and Hong Kong, our members have had a real impact this year on the death penalty in their own legislatures, while here in Japan, the section is at the heart of a growing abolitionist movement. In Brazil and Guatemala, the killing of street children goes on, but we have made it an international as well as a national scandal. In both those places, as well as most recently in Colombia and Peru, we have gone into the country and spoken out alongside national activists who risk death for their own heroic work. It was from Guatemala that one of these courageous individuals wrote this early this year. I carry the voice of the street children of Guatemala to thank Amnesty International on their behalf for all that you have been doing to help them. The kids never ever believed they had rights. Things are really moving. Everyone at the highest levels of government is talking about street children. Amnesty International has moved mountains. I suggest that we keep the street children of Guatemala in our minds as we decide the future of this organization at this council.
I am Simbu, Donald Simbu, from the Sierra Leonean section. This is my first time attending an ICM or a gathering of this nature. I'm very happy to be here because I know I'll meet Amnesty members from different parts of the world, and we will come and exchange ideas, experiences, and the problems we're facing in different parts of the world.
My name is Peter Mark Jadua, coming from the Sierra Leone Group 5. This is my first time, and I must say I'm very much impressed.
We see the ICM as an opportunity not only to see people from other sections, but also to learn as to how they organize things and how they present resolutions and make decisions. So many times when we come to the ICM or international gatherings, we learn how to do things and we try to impact them or adapt them to our own countries when we go back.
น้อยเจ้าจากไปหัวใจอันกล้าหาญท้าทายผาเด็ดการเทิดทูนสิทธิเสรีนกน้อยเจ้าจากไปหัวใจอันกล้าหาญท้าทายผัดเด็ดการเทิดทูนสิทธิเสรีประชาธิปไตยยากเย็นเข็นใจร่วมแรงข้างใจ
I have not received proposed amendments to the agenda or the timetable. Timetable is somewhat flexible here and there maybe, but I think I can assume safely that you are happy to go along with this agenda and timetable. See no objections. Thank you.
Well, I have chaired 3 ICMs now, and before that I've chaired working parties and been to many ICMs. It's my 15th. And I've seen it evolve from a rather small meeting to something which is really a big conference with a lot of preparation and a lot of complicated arrangements and procedures. And as the chair of the ICM, who is elected by the ICM itself every time for the next time, you have a certain responsibility to make sure that all these preparations and arrangements are done well.
I have asked on your behalf, but subject to your confirmation.
In fact, the chair of the ICM and the alternate chair are elected by the previous ICM, and they constitute the sort of backbone of the so-called ICM preparatory committee, together with an IC member and the Secretary General, or one of his deputies. And then within a year or so, or after a year, the chair of the ICM appoints the working party chairs. There are 4 working parties at least. That has been the structure for many ICMs now. The alternate chair of the ICM, who is also elected, will do 1 working parties, and 3 others are selected from nominations from sections. We get them together about 7 months before the ICM, once the resolutions are in, and then we start looking at the program, the substantive program for the ICM, through the resolutions, through the plan that the IEC is preparing, any other major issues that are in development, like for this ICM, very major documents on the mandate review and on the whole decision-making process. And what you have to do is put all that into some order so that the agenda is clear, that actually a lot of substance is translated in such a way, translated not in the language sense, but in the sense of translated from substantive ideas and proposal into something which you can actually take decisions on that are clear and that have their cost implications clear and that result in a budget that you can manage. Now all that together is a very complex process, and as it were, it starts at the beginning of an ICM year. We met in February this year, 1991, to look to an ICM which happened in September, and it happens now in September. And so right through that period, you're constantly reviewing the situation as regards the preparations, the deadlines, any new developments that may occur and that may affect the timetable. Timetables always turn out to be too optimistic. So there was a fairly intense involvement in that last run-up period. And then at the ICM, you have the task as ICM preparatory committee to make sure that indeed what you have prepared actually gets through. And that is sometimes easier said than done.
This is the, this is the 14th ICM that I've attended. There only have been 20, so I guess I'm a bit of a survivor. And that's the important quality you have to have for an ICM. It's a little easier now. In the old days, everybody used to go by train or by car. We used to load up these boxes into the Secretary General's car of all the papers, and he would drive across Europe to get somewhere, and we all have to unload them at the other end. Now, of course, you know, we take planes, we do all these sorts of things. There are a lot more people at the ICMs, a lot more sections. Especially now, there are many more people from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. There's a huge contingent of interpreters so that the meeting can go on simultaneously now in sometimes up to 5 languages.
Let's see, how does it work? A section puts in a resolution that is placed on the agenda of one of the working parties. Let's say a section wants more work done on fair trial. So it goes to either the working party on strategy, if it is more to do with the mandate organization, or it goes on to the working party on action, if it has more to do with, we want to do more work on it. It comes on into a working party there. The section who has proposed the resolution introduces it. And then there may be others who agree with it very much and will speak to it in favor. There may be others who don't like it very much, speak to it against. The International Executive Committee, as the main governing body in between the international councils, will also usually express an opinion.
Essentially, what I propose to do today before the break is to deal with 2 separate questions. The first question would be a beginning discussion on the general part of the mandate under A1 in the context of Resolution A11.
If we now decide to take up in this council concrete expansions, not only in the formula, be that homosexuality or administrative detention or NGEs or whatnot. You may think of other examples, house demolition, etc., exile. Is the view of the Mandate Review Committee that of course is up to the movement, we have our own recommendations, but it would be desirable that this expansion is that in a manner that covers several areas so that there's not an imbalance in this next movement outwardly.
The Working Party has focused on the general approach of the mandate. What, in general terms, will Amnesty focus on in the years ahead? And the first discussion was on the general framework. And there I think we're seeing a change, because in past years Amnesty had a very prisoner-oriented approach, and now it's moving to a more general focus without losing its prisoner or individual-focused element.
We have nearly 70 different proposals in the Working Party, and that's one of the difficulties in a Working Party, is that you have very little time for discussion, and yet the issues are very, very important to discuss, and people often have very different views and perspectives, particularly between different cultures, between different continents, between different language groups, even within different sections. And so the job of the Working Party is to find procedures both within the sessions and outside the sessions and informal sessions to reach consensus, if possible, among the different elements in Amnesty's world.
It can be that there are other resolutions on the same subject, and it is then logical not to take different decisions on each one of them, but to come to one integrated text in which you combine the elements from the different resolutions that people find most important. Sometimes that takes an extra drafting exercise. And so a consensus emerges or not. In any case, once that debate has taken place, a vote is taken, or if it is absolutely clear, then you won't need to take a vote. The chair will then just say, well, there clearly is a consensus of this. And then it is put in the Working Party report with a brief description of the main points in the discussion.
It's a great concern that we're trying to promote Amnesty International in a very culturally diverse area without adequate language backups. I mean, we have several international members in Indonesia, but we're producing nothing in the language of Indonesian. We have some very hard-working group members in Thailand. but they're struggling to translate their own newsletters. So we hope that this resolution will provide a chance for them to have a support system from the Asia Distribution Service in Hong Kong.
I have here a banknote. It's slightly more than £1 in Indian currency. And on this, down here we have a column written in very small text, which says effectively £1 or 50 rupees in 13 different scripts. And this does not include Hindi, and it does not include English, and both of which are, of course, very, very important scripts in India. And I'd be happy to pass this around if people would like to look at it, or if somebody wants, a souvenir to take home.
The resolution here mentions coordination by the office in Hong Kong, for example. Well, an ambitious program such as the one described here is a lot of work. Simply to coordinate it, I'm not talking about the time of translators, just coordinating all of those projects. That would be another additional cost.
This working party, it seems everybody is quite in favor of the decision, and there is minor change of words, nothing more than that, and it more or less everybody is in the same opinion that the resolution should be adopted.
On page 5, this schedule on page 5 of that paper.
That's the old paper.
The old paper, correct. All of these figures for recommended additions are reflected on a line-by-line basis in those sheets.
The 1992 program budgets and the 1993 program budgets, that is to say Appendix 3 and Appendix 4, are illustrative only. And that's what we're being asked to approve.
On the income side, we've taken the same approach. What is fixed is the assessment. What is fixed are funds that we have already gotten in hand, such as ANAC money, or the fundraising efforts by the such section.
In the list you can see the tags of different countries. Yes, yes. Quite well. Very fine.
I love to shop at every ICM because it gives us a kind of photography of what Amnesty is in terms of diverse people from diverse origin coming here with materials they have prepared themselves or they have taken from craftsmen at home. And I believe that it expresses, first of all, that all of us have something to bring and all of us have something to take.
You stand up proud, you pretend you're strong in the hope that you could be. Like the ones who cried, like the ones who died, trying to set the angel in us free. While they're waiting for us, while they're waiting for us, while they're waiting for a miracle, while they're waiting for us, while they're waiting for us, while they're waiting for a miracle. A los hombres quiero yo mi suerte dar, el arroyo de la sierra me complace más que nada. Ahora, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, ahí no va.
Not all that is in the mandate is to be found in so many words in Article 1 or 2 of the statute. I would propose we take a straw vote on the deletion, because after all the Working Party presented this text. Now, it didn't specifically approve it, but the insertion of the amendment to Article 2 was approved by the Working Party. So that is the proposal that we have before us. The sense of the opposition is that that paragraph should be deleted. All those in favor of the deletion or substantial alteration of this paragraph, raise your cards. All those against? It is the clear sense of this meeting that the substance ought to be retained here. The next question is, and this is now a proposal from the French section, that this be done not by way of amending the statute, but by way of, and this would then be a simple majority resolution, that this be done by just adopting the substantive text that is in the decides paragraph.
In the AI relief policies and procedures, some inconsistencies and confusions, and there have been taken some decisions during this ICM on mandate questions. So we think there might be some decisions and changes that have some effect on the relief guidelines. So that's why we think there is a need for a review and revision.
Can I ask whether there is any speaker against this resolution?
The Greek section doesn't oppose this resolution, but wants to express a skepticism about the last paragraph of the preamble, and therefore would like to be deleted. We find that paragraph, in a way, preempts the review.
Would that be considered friendly, as it preempts the position that might be taken later on? Brief comments, if necessary, from the Swedish section.
Accepted.
Okay, that is deleted. With those amendments, can I take it that this resolution can be adopted? Yes. Reports from the working parties we've had. It's the original agenda for the overall ICM, which we worked on in the opening plenary. The elections we have had, but we have not yet appointed auditors. Place of the 21st ICM, we note that that is now to be decided by the incoming IC, and they'll have to secure some invitations. Is there any other business before we close the ICM? Nearly 40 of them here this year. They remain mostly out of sight, suffer a lot, and are indispensable in the partnership that makes an international council. All right.
When we pay tribute to the section for the splendid organization and teamwork that has gone into hosting this council meeting, we really need to understand that it is only a reflection of a much greater achievement, the building of a growing and creative section of Amnesty International in Japan.
This ICM in Yokohama in 1991 has been a very special one. I've attended 10 ICMs, all of them since 1978, and probably this is the most special I have attended for basically two reasons. One, Amnesty International and the world are now at a juncture of great change all over. Political change, looking for new agendas, for new action for activists. How can we expand our humanitarian work? And Amnesty International has taken up that challenge here, and by consensus, it has agreed, first, to move very decisively into new areas of work.
It has been an important achievement for the sections and groups in Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, in that this time round it has been remarkable how, despite the fact that some of them are very young sections and young groups, they have been able to participate in a very intense manner in all the debates and to make a fantastic contribution to the important decisions that have been made in these last few days.
I feel very happy, first for the good atmosphere which prevailed, and the work done, and the fact it is over.